What if I told you the most shocking scandal in hip-hop history isn't about a diss track, a beef, or a broken friendship, but a leaked tape so wild it's threatening to destroy legacies, tear families apart, and end entire careers before they even begin? King Harris, the son of rap legend T.I., and Boosie's own son are at the center of a storm no one saw coming. A scandal filled with betrayal, hidden cameras, secret deals, and legal bombs waiting to explode. But here's the twist. This isn't just about a tape. It's about greed, power, revenge, and the dark side of fame that no one talks about. The internet isn't just watching, it's dissecting every second, and the fallout could change hip-hop forever. Buckle up, because what you're about to hear is darker than anyone imagined. It started like every other messy story in hip-hop whispers. Screenshots and anonymous DMIs sliding into gossip pages. But this one was different. This time, it wasn't about a petty diss or a relationship gone wrong. This time, the drama was nuclear. A leaked tape involving King Harris, the son of rap legend T.I. Boosie's son. And Boosie himself had hit the internet. And not only did it break the internet, it broke families, reputations, possibly the law. The footage wasn't some innocent behind-the-scenes moment. It was wild, reckless, and ugly. The kind of content no PR team on earth could spin. From the moment it surfaced, the hip-hop world froze. Nobody could believe what they were seeing. Fans didn't just react, they rioted online. Hashtags like #HarrisScandal and #BOOSIE exposed trended for days as millions tried to piece together how something so explosive could happen to people so powerful. For King, this was the last thing he needed. His entire image had been built on trying to break free from his father's shadow. To prove he was more than just T.I.'s son, but instead of proving himself through music or hustle, he was now proving the critics right. The same kid who once went viral for fighting a Waffle House worker and bragging about being different was now facing the ugliest kind of attention. His "I'm not average" attitude had turned into "I might have ruined my future." And then there was Boosie, the self-proclaimed king of controversy. For years, he's thrived on chaos, turning outrage into marketing and scandal into relevance. But this wasn't something you could meme your way out of. This was a career-ending firestorm. And the worst part? He wasn't just a bystander, he was allegedly involved. That revelation sent shockwaves across the internet. People weren't just disgusted, they were furious. How could a grown man allow something like this to happen? Why didn't he stop it? And if he knew, why didn't he protect his son? The questions came fast, and the answers were nowhere to be found. The leak spread like wildfire. Within hours, clips were popping up on every platform. Blurred screenshots, pixelated footage, cryptic captions like, "You're not ready for this?" It was everywhere. And once the internet gets its hands on something, good luck stopping it. I tried, oh he tried. According to insiders, he went into full crisis mode the moment he found out. Lawyers were called. Cease and desist letters were sent. Meetings were scheduled. But none of it mattered. The more he tried to suppress the footage, the more people wanted to see it. That's the curse of the internet. The harder you fight it, the bigger it gets. Meanwhile, Boosie wasn't hiding. Instead of going silent, he doubled down, laughing online, posting cryptic messages and mocking the situation, like it was all just entertainment. But that arrogance only made things worse. The narrative shifted from mistake to pattern. People began questioning his character, his parenting, and even his legacy. Was this just the latest in a long line of questionable decisions? Or was it something far more serious? By day 3, the story had grown beyond hip-hop. Major news outlets were picking it up. Talk shows were discussing it. Even people who had never heard of King Harris or Boosie were suddenly invested. And with that attention came consequences. Brand deals started disappearing. Sponsorships were paused. A major sneaker company reportedly cut ties with King's camp. One record label even released a statement saying they were reviewing their partnership with Boosie's team. Money was evaporating overnight. But the public wasn't done digging. Armchair detectives started piecing together timelines, sharing alleged DMIs, and speculating about who leaked the tape. Was it a friend? A former employee? A family member? Or was it all part of a bigger plan? And then the wildest theory of all surfaced, that the footage had been leaked on purpose. Some claimed it was a desperate attempt to boost attention. Others thought it was a revenge play by someone close. But no matter how wild the theory, one thing was clear. This was no simple accident. Behind the scenes, the tension was boiling over. T.I. was reportedly furious not just at the leak, but at his son. One source claimed he shouted, "You built this mess. Now you deal with it." During a heated argument, Boosie's ex was allegedly threatening to take his son away, calling the situation beyond repair. It wasn't just a scandal anymore. It was a war. And the craziest part, the footage might not even be the worst part of the story. According to insiders, there's a longer, darker, more explicit version of the tape that hasn't been released yet. And the people who have it, they're allegedly asking for money to keep it from going. Public extortion, betrayal, blackmail. This story was spiraling out of control. And for the first time, even the most chaotic players in hip-hop looked terrified. The internet, however, wasn't done. It wanted more. It demanded explanations. And it was only a matter of time before the situation exploded into something far bigger and far more dangerous than anyone expected. Because if this was just the beginning, the fallout was going to be catastrophic. Once the tape hit the internet, there was no putting the genie back in the bottle. What started as gossip turned into a global obsession, a trending story that dominated every timeline, every headline, and every group chat. It was no longer about what happened in that room. It was about the fallout, and the destruction that followed was unlike anything hip-hop had ever seen. Within 24 hours, social media became a battlefield. Hashtags like #CancelKing and #BOOSIEGate were trending worldwide. Twitter was a war zone of opinions. Some people were disgusted, calling it the lowest moment in Atlanta hip-hop, while others treated it like a reality show. "This is nastier than a Waffle House bathroom," one user tweeted. Another wrote they wanted to be famous, now they're infamous. The internet wasn't just reacting. It was celebrating the chaos. #cancel culture, #viral scandal. Then came the investigators, not the police yet, but the online detectives. Fans started piecing together evidence, screenshotting deleted posts, leaking DMs, and even claiming to know who leaked the footage. Fake stories flooded timelines, but it didn't matter if they were real. In the court of public opinion, perception is reality. One viral thread claimed Boosie had paid bloggers for years to bury scandals. Another said I knew about the footage long before it leaked and tried to silence it. None of it was confirmed, but everyone believed it. The pressure on the families was unbearable. T.I. was furious, not just because of the leak, but because his carefully built legacy was crumbling in front of him. He had spent decades crafting an image of success, a businessman, a father, a mogul. And now that image was being shredded by his own son's actions. Behind closed doors, insiders say the arguments were explosive. King reportedly shouted, "You raised me in this spotlight. Now deal with it," while T.I. blamed him for destroying the family's name. But it wasn't just public opinion that was turning against them. The legal world was watching too. According to several reports, lawyers were exploring whether the footage violated privacy or exploitation laws. Some even hinted at possible criminal investigations, especially if minors were involved or if anyone had profited from the footage. Suddenly, this wasn't just a scandal, it was a potential crime scene. And then came the rumors that changed everything. The footage the public saw wasn't the full story. According to insiders, a longer, uncut version existed. One that was more explicit, more damaging, and potentially more illegal. If that version leaked, the fallout would be catastrophic. And the whispers didn't stop there. Some sources claim that people close to the situation were trying to sell that version for millions. Others said it was being used as blackmail to extort money from both families. #uncut version, #legal drama at this point. Both families were spiraling. Boosie's ex threatened to take full custody of their son, saying he was in a toxic environment. King reportedly refused to leave the house, terrified of paparazzi and death threats. And T.I., once one of the most respected figures in hip-hop, was facing humiliation on a scale he had never imagined. The memes, of course, were relentless. One viral edit showed T.I. screaming in an old interview, captioned, "When you find out your son ended the family legacy." Another showed Boosie laughing with the caption, "Plot twist, he leaked it himself. What should have been private pain was now public entertainment. But behind the jokes, the real consequences were just beginning." Streams for King's music tanked. Boosie's shows were canceled. Sponsors backed out. One major brand allegedly walked away from a $5 million endorsement deal. And the families, they were left to pick up the pieces of a disaster that was only getting worse. As week 2 rolled on, it became clear that the damage wasn't going to fade. This wasn't a story people would forget in a few days. It was becoming a defining moment, a cautionary tale about the cost of clout and the price of playing with fame. But what no one expected was what came next. Whispers of federal involvement. Talk of lawsuits and the terrifying possibility that someone, maybe more than one person, could actually end up behind bars. Because when scandal turns into evidence and gossip turns into a courtroom case, the game changes completely. And for King, Boosie, and their families, that was exactly what was about to happen by the time week 3 hit. The situation wasn't just spiraling, it was free-falling. What had started as a leaked tape had turned into a full-blown disaster that no PR team, no apology, and no amount of money could stop. The internet had already handed down its verdict, but now it was the legal system preparing to step in. And once lawyers and investigators enter the picture, the stakes are no longer likes and views. They're careers, freedom, and reputations that might never recover. Behind closed doors, panic was turning into paranoia. According to insiders, T.I.'s legal team was working around the clock, trying to track down the source of the leak. Subpoenas were being prepared. Court filings were drafted. Multiple lawsuits were filed against blogs, content creators, and anyone profiting off the footage. But it wasn't just about stopping the spread. It was about controlling the narrative before it was too late. Hashtag legal firestorm. Hashtag reputation crisis. At the same time, whispers of a criminal investigation started getting louder. Georgia state authorities were reportedly reviewing the footage to determine if any laws had been broken, and if so, who'd be held responsible. The talk of possible exploitation charges was enough to send shockwaves through the industry. One anonymous source even claimed the FBI had been contacted due to potential interstate distribution. If that were true, the entire scandal would escalate from embarrassing to federal. The mere possibility of criminal charges was enough to make sponsors vanish. Brand partnerships that had already been paused were now being permanently terminated. Deals that were under review quietly disappeared. A planned docuseries on T.I. and King's family was scrapped by a major streaming platform before it even began production. And according to insiders, one of Boosie's biggest tour contracts was canceled mid-negotiation, costing him millions. Meanwhile, the tension inside the families was at a breaking point. King and Tia's relationship, already strained, was now completely fractured. They weren't speaking. Friends close to the family claimed that T.I. had even considered cutting financial support for his son to teach him a lesson. King, for his part, felt abandoned, blaming his father for putting him in a spotlight he never asked for and failing to protect him when things fell apart. Boosie's family wasn't faring any better. His son reportedly refused to leave the house, overwhelmed by the public humiliation. Boosie's ex was still threatening to pursue full custody, and several close friends had distanced themselves entirely, refusing to be associated with what they called a career-ending scandal. But the most damaging blow came from within. Betrayal. Hashtag betrayal from within. Hashtag family breakdown. According to a now viral report, someone close to Boosie's camp, possibly a former friend or business partner, was responsible for leaking the footage. The motive? Revenge and money. The report claimed this insider had been cut out of a deal and decided to sell the tape to the highest bidder. Whether it was true or not didn't matter. The story was believable enough that it spread like wildfire. And once the public started believing that the leak came from someone inside the circle, trust within both families completely disintegrated. The betrayal theories grew wilder by the day. Some claimed it was a disgruntled employee. Others believed a family member did it to get revenge. And then there were those who swore it was part of a larger setup, a coordinated effort to destroy T.I. and Boosie's reputations once and for all. Conspiracies aside, one fact remained: someone leaked it. And that person had just detonated a bomb that no one could defuse, even the industry, which had initially tried to stay neutral, turned its back. Artists who once supported King quietly unfollowed him. Labels that had worked with Boosie distanced themselves. Producers canceled studio sessions. The message was clear: association with either name was now a liability. But just when it seemed like things couldn't possibly get worse, they did. Industry collapse, #toxic brand rumors began swirling that the leaked footage wasn't the end, that a second, even more explosive recording existed. Allegedly, it contained content that was far more damaging, and if released, it could lead to serious legal consequences. Some insiders claimed this uncut version was being used to extort money. Others said it was already in the hands of investigators. Either way, the fear of another leak sent both camps into full-blown crisis mode. The legal system responded too. Reports surfaced that a grand jury was considering evidence. Prosecutors were allegedly looking into whether the leak could be tied to a larger pattern of misconduct, even hinting at the possibility of RICO charges if they could prove organized activity. The word indictment started popping up in legal blogs. Suddenly, this wasn't just about careers, it was about freedom. As the investigation deepened, the personal consequences grew even more severe. Boosie's son was indefinitely suspended from school due to safety concerns. King was reportedly receiving death threats online and had to hire private security. Tiny, exhausted, and humiliated, was said to be considering a temporary separation from T.I. to protect her own image. The scandal wasn't just killing careers, it was destroying lives. #scandal destroys. #real consequences end. Then came the cultural backlash. The same fans who once idolized T.I. and Boosie were now mocking them. Comment sections were filled with jokes, memes, and ruthless commentary. One viral tweet read, "This ain't love and hip-hop, this is love and lawsuits." Another said, "Fame is a drug, and we're watching the overdose in real time." Even worse, hip-hop legends who had once mentored T.I. and Boosie began distancing themselves. They didn't want the stain of the scandal to touch their legacies. One veteran artist said in an interview, "This is beyond music now. This is a cautionary tale." By the end of week 3, one thing was certain: there was no going back. No apology could undo the damage. No PR strategy could erase the headlines. The leaked tape had gone from gossip to history, and the consequences would be felt for years to come. The legacies of T.I. and Boosie, once built on respect and power, now stood on the edge of collapse. And as investigators dug deeper, as families fell apart, and as the internet refused to let the story die, one question remained: how much worse could this get? Because as dark as things already were, the storm wasn't over. Not by a long shot, by the 4th week. The scandal was no longer a story. It was a global phenomenon. Every media outlet, every podcast, every blog had covered it. And yet, the deeper everyone dug, the darker it got. This wasn't just a leak anymore. It had become a blueprint for how fame, money, the damage to King Harris' image was now beyond repair. Once presented as the future of Atlanta hip-hop, he was now a walking cautionary tale. No label wanted to sign him. No promoter wanted his name on a flyer. Even artists who had privately supported him began ghosting calls. One source close to a major label put it bluntly: "It's not just about the scandal, it's about trust. If he's capable of this, what else is he capable of?" Boosie's situation was equally grim. His reputation, once built on being raw, real, and unfiltered, had become toxic. He was losing sponsors left and right. Concert promoters canceled tours. TV deals evaporated. And perhaps most painfully, the loyal fan base that had supported him through every controversy started to turn on him. People who once defended his antics now saw him as part of the problem, not the rebel against it. The financial fallout was devastating. King reportedly lost millions in potential deals. Boosie, according to industry insiders, was forced to liquidate properties and scale back his lifestyle just to cover legal costs. And T.I. His empire, once untouchable, was now bleeding money and credibility. A venture capitalist who had been negotiating a new business venture with T.I. abruptly backed out, saying, "We don't do business with headlines like this." But the most terrifying part of it all? The legal stakes were rising higher by the day. Multiple civil lawsuits had been filed, some by people allegedly featured in the footage, others by companies claiming reputational damage. And the word on the street was that prosecutors were preparing to present evidence to a grand jury. If indictments followed, it could mean years behind bars for some of the key players. #courtroom chaos, #fall from grace behind the scenes. The families were completely broken. T.I. and King's relationship was in shambles. They hadn't spoken in weeks, and sources claimed T.I. was considering stepping away from public life altogether. Tiny, exhausted, and embarrassed, had reportedly moved out temporarily to escape the chaos. Boosie's home was no better. His son was withdrawn and silent. His ex was pushing for full custody. And those closest to him, the friends, collaborators, business partners, who once filled his circle, had almost all disappeared. The betrayal cut the deepest. No one still knew who had leaked the footage, and that uncertainty was destroying what little trust remained. Was it a friend? A disgruntled employee? A family member? Or was it, as some conspiracy theorists claimed, a coordinated plot to destroy T.I. and Boosie's empires from within? Without answers, everyone was suspicious of everyone else. #trust broken, #betrayal even worse. The rumor of a second unreleased tape refused to die. Some claimed it was being used as blackmail. Others swore law enforcement already had it. Whether it was real or not, the fear of another bombshell kept both families living on edge, constantly waiting for the next shoe to drop. The industry, too, had learned its lesson. The fallout from this scandal changed how labels operated. Contracts began including stricter morality clauses. Companies hired social media monitoring firms to prevent similar disasters. Even artists started distancing themselves from potential scandals, terrified of ending up like King and Boosie. This was more than a controversy. It was a cultural shift. And through it all, the internet did not stop. Memes became history. Jokes turned into documentaries. What was once a scandal was now a symbol, a reminder that fame is fragile. And one wrong move can destroy everything you built by the end of the month. The reality was unavoidable. The careers of King Harris and Boosie were effectively over. The trust of fans, gone. The money, vanished. The respect, erased. And the legacies they had spent years building were now permanently scarred. Not just by one night, okay? But by every decision that followed. #no redemption, #end of an era. And yet, the world couldn't look away. Because deep down, everyone wanted to know one thing. Is this truly the end? Or is there more to come, more footage, more lawsuits, more revelations that could sink them even deeper? No one knows for sure. But one thing is certain. Their names are now etched in hip-hop history. Not as legends, not as pioneers, but as a warning. A reminder that clout chases back, that fame bites back, and that once you cross certain lines, there's no coming back. And if the rumors about the unreleased footage, sealed indictments, and the betrayal from inside the circle turn out to be true, then this isn't the end. It's just the calm before the next storm. #scandal forever, #gossip spill vibe, #hip hop history, and there it is. The rise, the fall, and the total collapse of one of the most explosive scandals hip hop has ever seen. What started as a leaked tape, just a few seconds of recklessness, turned into a storm that destroyed reputations, ended careers, tore families apart, and exposed the darkest side of fame. King Harris wanted to prove he was more than T.I.'s son. Boosie thought he could thrive off chaos forever. But the truth is, nobody is untouchable, not even royalty. This story isn't just about one mistake. It's about ego, betrayal, greed, and the illusion of invincibility. It's about how fast everything can disappear when you let clout control your choices. And it's a warning to every upcoming artist, influencer, and fan. The internet doesn't forgive, doesn't forget, and once it turns on you, there's no coming back. But now we want to hear from you. Do you think this scandal was karma catching up, or was it a setup from the inside? Can King or Boosie ever rebuild what they lost, or are their legacies destroyed forever? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Your opinion might just be the spark for our next deep dive. And if you want to stay ahead of every twist, every betrayal, and every shocking secret the industry tries to hide, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Because trust us, this story might be ending, but the next one is already brewing. And when it hits, you're going to want to be right here, breaking it down with us. Breaking it down with us.